right, we're going to try to ramp things up a little bit higher with the EBMX X9000 controller with a KO motor over here on the dyno, and we'll be logging things here with our software and on this machine up here. So we're going to ramp it up and 800 phase amps and see what we can do here for it. So take it away, guys. So phase amps are down here. Battery amps are over in this area. And start loading on the dyno. Here we go. So we're looking at the logs over here. Input power, we were only able to get up to about 21, almost 22 kilowatts. The output power, is about 16, 17. Pretty much got up to the motor temperature limit there. Over temp just kicked in on the motor. So running at 800 phase amps, we're literally only able to do this for less than a I don't know, it's around less than a minute of load on this dyno at 800 phase amps. 84 volts here, and we've already kicked into overheating this motor. So with a fan on it, it's nice and warm. So the controller, which is sitting here with, there's no water cooling. It's the water-cooled heat sink that's on it, but it's just sort of sitting on the desk here. And controller only got up to 38 degrees, 39 degrees when the motor overheated there. So there we are. So just in summary, on that last run where we sort of overheated here, break this down a little bit more. So we were only able to do about 260 battery amps, DC amps, and got a max input power of almost 22 kilowatts. And at that, our output power was 17 kilowatts, which is right here. And we were able to run up to, these are our RMS amps, so 578 RMS amps. If we come over and calculate that, root mean square amps, here we go, by 2, and multiply that by 578 is 817 phase amps. And yeah, basically 30 seconds there, and we were over temperature. So I think that shows what this motor can do on the dyno. And now we've got the KO controller hooked up here on the bench, just like we had the EBMX one. We've got the same exact motor here set up with the fan. We've got the KO dashboard here, 84 volts, which is the same, and the same software running up here. So the motor temperatures are just about the same, a little bit lower than what we ran the EBMX tests at. So the controller is at 32 at the moment, and the motor's at 30 degrees. So settings in here, you guys can see they're the same. So we've set it up for 800 phase amps, 400 line amps, just like the EBMX controller was set up. And we're just going to give a comparison here now, ramp this up on the dyno with the same settings and see how the KO performs. Let's do it. All right, here we go. Load is kicking on. The controller is starting to ramp up pretty quickly on the temperature. EBMX only got to 39, 40 degrees. This controller is really starting to heat up as we get load. All right, that's stalled out. Let's have a quick look over here at the numbers. All right, so what did we get here? So power output, power input. So input power looks like about 24 kilowatts. Output power 17 kilowatts, which is the same thing. If we have a look at the phase amps, these are the RMS amps, so we just need to calculate those ones. So calculate that out. So we had 450. Multiply that out to get the phase amps. So, right. We were telling this thing to do 800. We told the EBMX controller to do 800. It did 800. This is only going to 636. And just to double check, this controller temperature had jumped up. We're at like 60 degrees now. It was well up over that. So, same thing. Motor temperature is way up there. I think it's safe to say having less FETs, that definitely heats up on this controller compared to the EBMX one. So yeah, interesting results. Same output power, so it's supposed to be, well, it's advertised as a 35 kilowatt motor, but yeah, two different controllers running 800 phase amps, running a constant power supply at 84 volts, and we're seeing a max output of 17 kilowatts on this. So interesting info. All right, guys, so we've set the EBMX controller back up on here now. Just been doing some testing with the KO controller. We've got the KO motor. All the settings are the same as what we had. So the EBMX X9000 controller. We ended up hooking a fan up on the controller with the KO controller because it was just getting too hot too quick. But I think the EBMX controller should be just fine like this. That's the little turbo fan that we were using there for the KO controller heatsink. 84 volts is our power supply, and just to show the settings here are the same as what we set in the KO. So we've got a max current we've set at 800, even though our controller, it can go up above, but we're just trying to compare with the with the KO one, 400 amps. And we'll go into data logging and we'll ramp up and we'll load the dyno. So things to watch here are phase amps down on the bottom here. And then watching the temperatures here is what we're keeping an eye on as well. So, all right, guys, let's get this loaded up, and let's see what the graph shows us. All right, so RPM climbing, load climbing, phase amps going up. All right, now starting to load up, over 300 phase amps. Temperature's starting to go up, 500. 600, 700, 900, almost 8. Okay, there we go. All right, so we got to about 48, 50 degrees maybe, peaked out and stalled, and we'll come over and have a look at the data. So we have input to 22 kilowatts, output is about 17, 18 kilowatts, and our RMS amps are 474, which, let's do a calculation there. So 474 by 1.414, so that's 670. So if we would have kept holding that down a little more, we would have likely gone back up over 800 like we did before, but we just let off the throttle a little bit early. And yeah, temperatures now still, controller's already back down at 36. There's been no fan on it or anything else, and the motor is sitting at 60 at the moment. All right, gonna test here again. So same setup, KO motor, set up on the KO software here. Controller temperature is 30 degrees at the moment. Motor is 32 degrees. 800 phase amps, 400 battery amps, and input of 84 volts on the power supply. Gonna give KO a bit of an advantage this time because the poor thing was getting a bit hot. So we've got a turbo fan here, and we're gonna ramp this turbo fan up and leave this. This is blowing all the way underneath this controller and completely cooling it down. Let's ramp it up, guys, and see what happens here. So with the turbo fan completely on, running the same tests, and seeing where the temperature stacks up against the EBMX controller. All right, over 45 degrees, still heating up. Motor's starting to get a bit warm. $57, $64, $66, $69, $71, $72, $74. Oh man, so we're basically, we stalled out the dyno there now. There we go, over temperature on the controller. And we even have a fan here on this thing, and it still got over temperature. Then the stats of power that we're looking at here, just go back up to where those were. Power, so same power stats we've been seeing, 17 kilowatts output, 24 input, and 450-ish RMS amps, which is, let me turn this jet fan thing off here, this is really loud. That's about 640 phase amps, so yeah, not what this claimed to be 800 phase amps there, definitely for sure. So interesting to see what the actual outputs are on this thing and how fast this controller gets hot. So yeah, I guess obvious there's less FETs, there's less copper in there. It doesn't do a good job managing heat even with a turbo fan put on that thing.